That's High School Musical, yes.
Alright,
Or something. All right.
here.
Okay, so let's start this off. In 5, 4, 3. Good afternoon. Never mind. Let's start over again. Ooh, I can't see. I'm rusty. All right. 5, 4, 3. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jovin from the GoLoco podcast, and with me today we have a very special guest. Gabe, would you like to introduce yourself real quick? So just a brief introduction.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Gabe Golden. Usually on online different channels that I'm on, I go by Golden. It's just simple. I'm a creator. I make language board games. I also speak 10 languages, so I love language. I do some voice acting. I'm on a couple of YouTube channels, and I'm recording audiobooks. So I'm kind of all over. But
got a lot of stuff on your plate. I can relate to that very much so.
Yep.
So yeah, so Gabe, we're today you wanted to come on and we're going to talk about your company, Passionfruit Education, and the upcoming game you guys are producing. That do you guys have a timetable when you think that would be releasing? Or just like rough estimate right now?
So I don't know, depending on like when you're I guess I can say month wise. I'm looking for like between like February, like at least into February. We had like some setbacks. This is our first game we produced, so
Right.
It's definitely a learning process of all this stuff. So you have to look out for it. But luckily, this is not going to be our only game. We'll just keep going.
It's the first idea of many, right?
Yes.
All right. So, Passionfruit Education. Can you tell me more about your guys' company and what you specifically do at Passionfruit Education? Links in the description for everything as well, by the way.
Yeah. So, Passionfruit Education, mostly what we focus on is helping people learn languages through board games or other language materials. And I say that because after we get a couple board games out, we're going to be developing an app and also getting our board games digital. We also have a service where you can find a language teacher. We pair you up with a language teacher if you're trying to learn, and then you guys can go over prices. If the price isn't right, we can like try to get you with another language teacher that maybe has a smaller rate or a lower rate. We're going to be soon producing videos too of like just language lessons in different languages. We're just kind of all over the board of language learning, but we're just trying to make it fun and customizable towards you, because like our name, Passionfruit Education, it's you're learning through your passion. Our tagline is passion bears progress, because when you have passion, you don't even like realize you're learning. You're just having fun, and the learning comes with that, and that's what we're trying to focus on.
Right. So, speaking on that, I think there's my dad actually has a saying. He's told me so many times through lectures or whatnot. He's like, a lot of people want to do what they love, right? And obviously, like you want to follow your dreams, you'll follow your passions, right? But he also said, if you end up also loving what you do, like just say you have your work and you end up falling in love with that, you'll always be happy. So not only pursue the stuff that you love to do, the stuff that you might not love to do. If you learn to love it, if you learn to have a passion for it, you'll be happy in that regard as well. As long as you have passion and like just going through whatever you're doing in life, you're gonna have a good time. Like you said, if you're having a passion for learning, you're not really learning. You're just having fun. You're learning, but you're not like, it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm going to school in the morning and I'm going coffee. You know what I mean, right? It's like it's a feeling of like, just like everything is better when you're having fun, right? Like I can say basically anything if you're having fun. Yeah, I could say for the most part, like everyone has like the need for wanting to do something fun. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I said.
And that passion, like it's not gonna always be fun. You're gonna have those tough times where like it's gonna feel monotonous. But like if you if you like already, if this is your passion and you like kind of know where it's going to go, you're not going to give up in those hard times, just to like it's over, like kind of thing.
Right.
You're going to want to keep going. And I think that's where I want to um, instill learning within like somebody's passion or through their passion, so that at the time where they would usually give up, they wouldn't, because they're like, I've already come this far. So
Right.
that's my
So, for how many of you guys are at Passion for Education right now? Like, is it just a small team? Are you guys branching out right now, or
it's a small team. We're always looking for more people.
right?
Right now we just have we work with like a bunch of like language consultants, like, so people who would consult on our games, or people who would be language teachers on this, like standing by when we have like language learners. Currently, we have a few students. Actually, the highest requested language right now to learn for like lessons is Japanese,
Hmm.
which is nice. And yeah, so it's still a small team though, so we're
Right.
not ready for the big leagues yet.
Right. You just like, it's like a startup in the tech world. Like, you guys are just starting. We're haven't gotten too big. We're just getting our ideas out there, and then
Exactly,
right.
exactly.
So, where did the idea of passion for education come from? Like, did you guys just on a whim? Has it been something you guys been talking about for a long time? Like, what happened with that?
So it started with me, as the CEO and president. Before I have a background in linguistics and teaching English as a second language,
Right.
and I was at the school that I work at. I was in charge of the language learning, like it was like after school club, and my job was to basically get them into like staying after school and practicing their English any way possible. And at the time, one of your other guests, Grothy, as I call him, Jonathan Grothy, he already got me into board games, and I knew a few that were actually pretty good with like building their English learning, which was like Code Names, One Night Werewolf, if you're familiar with any of those,
Yeah. Yes, I
Dixit.
played that.
Yeah, so I was like, I brought those in, and like we were playing them, and like the the club grew. People were coming in after school and staying, and I was like, okay, cool. Let me find more board games about like that help with like language learning or English. And I went to the store and I asked like the like clerk at like this big hobby game store, and he was like, oh, he named the few, and like they were the ones I already had, and I was like, man, somebody should like build, like make more of these, because people want to like have fun and learn languages. And then it kind of clicked in my mind. I was like, wait a minute, I should build
Why
this.
can't why can't I be the niche? Why
Exactly.
these niches need to be filled? Why don't I? Yeah, I got. I understand
Exactly.
that.
Yeah. So then I went on. I was like, okay, what kind of games do I want to make? And like I went through all these ideas, and picked one, and then I just kind of found friends who were like interested in like helping build this with me. And not everybody stuck around, but like, yeah, that's where it just grew. And I didn't want to just make games for other companies or something like that, because a lot of times your ideas kind of get pushed to the side for like money, or like, oh, they think it won't sell well, but it's not really their goal isn't always language learning. It's maybe selling board games or what have you. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it my own, and I'm gonna make this company, and I'm going to build it from the ground up. And so that's where we're still on ground level here, but
Right.
we're still trying to build it up.
Of course, of course. And you mentioned earlier at the top of the show, you're talking about the game you're planning for maybe February or in the next few months
Mhm.
releasing it, right? To the
Yes.
public, right? So the game is what I call is Word Chef, which
Right.
so would you like to explain to the audience what Word Chef is, what the game is, how to basics of how to play it, and like where the idea of that first game came from?
Sure. So Word Chef is kind of a mix of like Family Feud with Iron Chef
Ooh, I like
uh,
that.
meets language learning. It's the whole theme is you are chefs competing to be the ultimate word chef team. Not really like one person, but you're competing to be the word chef team. So it splits into two teams. Each team will have a leader for a round that switches off, and there are three categories of words that you have. Words that you can choose from. We have nouns, verbs, and miscellaneous. That could be adverbs. That could be a bunch of other things. And your host will see the word whatever you pick, and let's say it's like right to right, and on the card there will be below a bunch of synonyms of right, like jot, all that type of stuff, and a few of them are what's considered hot words. These are the words that you need to win this card ultimately, but you can name as many synonyms as you like. So your head chef has 1 minute to name as many synonyms as possible. If
Um,
they get all of the hot words, then they get the card. But if after the minute is done, they don't get all the hot words, then the other team has a chance to steal.
oh, like
And
Family Feud. Got it.
yeah, exactly. And you still by naming one of the hot words. They haven't seen the card yet. Naming one of the hot words and using it correctly in the sentence, because not every synonym you can't just replace
Right.
them. That's not exactly how synonyms work. So, and if they name the hot word and use it correctly, then they get that card. And it's going to be played to a once two cards, at least two cards from each pile is taken out, then that is the end of the game. You can keep going through like the same pile, to rack up more points. Easier ones have 1 point, harder ones have three, and so forth.
Right.
Um, and yeah, so person with the team with the most points wins.
Right, that's a really cool concept. I feel like that definitely would help people who are trying to get English as their first language. Like they know some words, and to learn synonyms, which aren't, as you said, they aren't exactly the same, but they're very obviously similar use. Like
Yeah.
write and jot aren't exactly the same word, but they can use, but they have similar definitions. So that helps people like expand their vocabulary, and just instead of just having like knowing a few words, it expands their knowledge of the English language in a way. So, and you say you have to use it in a sentence, of course, right? You can't just be like,
Exactly.
it's like if you like your thing was stone, right? And you're like,
A
I
stone.
I cook stone. Like
Yeah,
that doesn't make
yeah,
sense, right?
exactly.
Right. Do
And
you have any previews or any like
well,
stuff on you right now? With if not, I'll
uh,
probably if you could send it to me, I could show it on screen as well. But
I can send you a couple like previews of it.
right.
But another part of the game that I really want to be used like a mechanic is your team can yell as many words to you as possible, and you know your answers are accepted by the host. So the whoever is the team leader, their answers are accepted. And I did this because I I want it to be like a peer-to-peer learning style. So while you may not know the word, one of your teammates knows the word, and then they can feed you that information and you'll know it for later. Like, oh, okay, yeah, they just said jot. I never heard that before, but that's one of the like answers.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. And for what's the? I know this typically board games. You're trying to get as many people as possible. Is there
Mhm.
any specific demographic you're like going for specifically this one? Is it are you basically trying not to advertise it towards people who are trying to learn the English language, or like maybe they're learning English, or do you want to just like broad on it? It's like everyone can play. I mean, obviously everyone can play, but
So yeah, I geared it more towards from about middle school.
all
I
right,
know you usually think of age range, but I'm gonna do like education wise, like middle school to like college um, is the
okay,
typical range, but anybody can play. And I made it so broad because I want to make party games where just everybody can get involved. And I want my games to be like you. I want you to feel silly playing them as if they are kids games, but you're actually learning, because we all have that inner child in us that we want to like let out, and like that's I think that's where the learning is, when we are just messing around and just feeling like a kid. I think that's when like the learning starts the most.
Right. Yeah. I think my fondest memories of learning is when you had that one teacher who like tried to make it not a game, but it's like more fun. Cause I remember like in seventh grade, we were learning about Japan for history, right? And he was like,
Mhm.
okay, in order for us to like have more fun, like with learning the part, I think it's world history for seventh grade. So learning that section of Japan, our teacher was like, hey, we're gonna have like basically just like we're gonna have this map of Japan. There are three. Have you played For Honor?
Mhm.
We have three factions, people who want to be shogun, and everyone is trying to like the more like if there's a question on a quiz and you guys get it right, you get a point, and you guys can like move up or take out that area, and whoever by the end of the Japanese section, where I think it was like 3 weeks, whoever got the most, obviously they got like I think they like you got any pizza you guys want, we'll order for you for lunch, and you guys can have it during lunch. I was like, of course, being
Hey,
seventh graders who love pizza,
fun.
and a lot of
Exactly.
people love Japan, and it's like, oh my god, it was like the most fun thing. It was because we had to like know stuff in order to win. We
Yeah,
can't be like we couldn't just like I want to attack. Like, why do you want to attack? Do you know the answer to this question? Like here for like
exactly.
right, and it was like stuff like that was like when I had the most fun back in school. And even if and it was like I would rather do that than be like taking a PowerPoint that we're gonna look over for a week, jot down notes, Cornell style notes. Like I'm
You know,
learning, but I'm like I'm
you
gonna
know,
forget
yeah,
all of this. There's no like I think for we can get the broader topic of like retaining information for education, but I feel like if for the most part I'm going to lose like 70% of what I remember from school the next year, I at least want to have the memories of having fun learning rather than
yeah,
just like it's such a bore.
right.
I don't want to do this. I can't.
Get something out of it.
Right.
And I think you hit on something really important. The participation there. I think that's the key of like remembering stuff, is because you like kind of like you associate like that memory with your participation in like thing, instead of you just sitting in the back listening. You're not really going to get everything, but you're like, I remember like raising my hand, or I remember like we were so close to getting the last point in the game, and like somebody shouted out the answer, and I was like, oh, is it this? And like you
Right.
celebrated or
Just
whatever.
like I think having like whether it be board games, video games, or any type of sport, like those memories, especially when you're younger, like it's like the biggest things, like your team building, you're having fun, the memories you make that you always look back fond of. Like I remember that thing in seventh grade. I don't remember anything that happened like let's say sophomore year in math class. I don't remember a single like I
Yeah,
might remember some of the like those concepts from the math, but I have no memories of the actual class. Like I don't
right.
remember my teacher. Seventh grade, Mr. Osborne's history class, I remember that fondly, right? That's the especially like during those developmental years of schooling. Yeah, I would say even up to like mid college age that like is like it's really like important for you to have those memories because like if at least for me if like I just went through school and I had no fun at all, I mean yeah I might go here, might get a successful job or whatnot, but like I miss my childhood at that point. It's like because a lot of people were like look back it's like oh I could have I could have done lacrosse for that 1 year because I didn't really have that much struggle because you don't know like you don't know what you got till it's gone, like time wise, right? So
Exactly.
have
Yeah.
fun while you're at school,
Yeah.
right? And then
And I mean, if you're 80 years old, you can play this game too. Like, I mean,
yeah, it's we're not telling we're
stop
not being ageist
yourself.
here. We're just like we're just like before
Yeah,
you guys at the Passion Fruit Education, obviously education is like a big part of it and the whole
exactly.
concept. So obviously learning, and I think it just that type of game I can see for helping like out for like it can be played at schools during like stuff at like recess for maybe younger people. But I could see that like at like some people were like trying to rough up like brush up their English skills, and also there's times where it's like I want to show off how many synonyms I know.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
thesaurus.com and I know everything. I'm gonna beat you, and like all that competitiveness, as much as like some people like oh sometimes it's kind of something like a
yeah.
good amount of competitiveness is warranted. And when you're competitive, it means you're trying, which means you're learning. And like those like as long
Exactly.
as it doesn't go
That
too
whole loop.
far, as long as you're not like going like Call of Duty or League of Legends level of trash talking or something. I think having that competitive edge for the most part makes people drive to be better. Like, and they get, and
right? Yeah.
obviously with this type of game, that would make them remembered. Like especially like
And,
let's say you're in like high school, you play this game, and then you're trying like, okay, I need to like write this essay, and you're like, I could change this word. I know there's a synonym for this now, and then that helps you, even if it's like minor only. Like the teacher might not even notice, but you know, like, okay, I don't, my vocabulary just is now increased, just even so
and
slightly.
yeah, you don't sound like everybody else anymore. And
Right.
actually, on that note, I want to say it's not just in English. The game's actually going to be in 5 different languages.
Ooh, okay.
And you can tell which language it is based on, like, I made the cards for verbs, nouns, and adjectives are based on like popular fruits from foods from those languages. So like the like Japanese one has an onigiri or like um, a rice ball, a sashimi, and it also has a what's the third one? Okay, I'm blinking. Oh, like donburi.
Okay.
So basically, donburi is like rice, and then on top of it is like any type of meat that you want.
Right,
Um,
right.
so like yeah, they're also cute to look at and like fun to see. So
Right, and
um,
then speaking of those food items, I'm not trying to brag here, but I may or may not know the person who helped design those things.
yeah,
My amazing girlfriend, who, if you guys see the game, she has similar. Her art style is she has on her sticker shop. I'm linking that below. I'm definitely shouting her
yeah,
out for that. She
yeah,
was amazing. I just remember because I remember she was sending me all these things like, how do you think this looks? Can you improve? How do you think I can improve it? And she was like really trying to, and for her as someone who was just helping out with the game, I could see the passion she
yeah,
was having in making it, and I can only assume how much you guys are like really
yeah.
wanting this game to take off, and like
Yes.
I'm fully supporting you guys. So that's a
Help,
really cool concept.
helping out, but she was fully paid for the artwork.
She was
I'm like
fully paid.
saying,
Fully paid. Okay,
yeah, 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 yeah.
we're not unpaid
And like
internships. This
I,
isn't a straight out college stuff. No,
and, and I seriously like, yeah, yeah. Shout out, I'm a sleep.
stay asleep. Yep. Her
For
sticker shop
Instagram.
and Instagram will be linked in the description below.
Yeah,
You should
like
check her sticker shop out.
yeah. Because when I was first looking for like art designs for like the cards, I was like, oh, what what's it gonna look like? And I like did some like really basic versions of it, and I think um, she happened to see one of the like
Design.
pictures through
Right.
like May and one of our mutual
Who was
friends,
also
and
on the recent podcast. I think actually the last podcast episode we
yeah,
had made, right?
yeah, yeah. And she like kind of, I think she was just like doing like some like, oh, just playing around and making something. And then I saw it and I was like, I want that. Please help me with my game.
Right.
Yeah, talented artist.
Yeah, she has really cute aesthetic to her stuff, and I think it works really well with your guys' game, what you guys are going for. Yeah. So we've kind of spoke about how education is the base of your company and the base of this
Mhm.
game, and we recently
Oh, and the
our
language
oh,
it's in is Japanese, English,
Japanese,
German,
German.
Spanish, and Portuguese.
Okay. Okay. Is there
The five.
any, and then are you guys planning on maybe expanding into other languages
Oh
eventually,
yeah,
or but for right now,
oh
you
yeah.
guys are focusing on those core five right now?
So the box is going to be bigger than those 5 games. So they're going to be in packets,
Okay. So
and
like
then there's
the
going
okay.
to be other sets. So like when another another set comes out, like you could just buy that add-on
It's like
set like
expansion pack,
you
like
want.
Cards Against
It,
Humanity does, right?
exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
So that's what I'm looking at. I mean, uh, the next few in line I'm looking at Italian. I'm looking at Tagalog. I'm also looking at like maybe doing like something over in Europe, like Eastern Europe. I haven't figured out which country
Okay.
yet. So, but
You're
so
trying to expand it to
something's in
you're just trying to like expand it as
reach.
many
Yeah,
unique languages as possible. You don't want to just do like
exactly.
the same one: English, French, Spanish, Japanese, Chinese. Like everyone does that. You need, but like not everyone knows like, I don't know, Bulgarian. Like not everyone's gonna know how to
Yeah.
speak like that. But like this might be the intro to like, at least maybe not learn fully, but like just like, have
Yeah.
fun learning a little few words.
And because they're it's the game is like 99% cards, it's gonna be easy to like, just
Right.
print out a new set list. And like I always go over Like, so I speak 10 languages myself,
Oh, subtle
and
brag, subtle brag. No.
just a little. And so I did the base like content for each language. And then I had an expert, someone who's like either a native speaker or who has done like, has at least like, their masters in that language, like review it and then like, hey, are any of these wrong? Any of these right?
Is my grammar
For the
correct?
most
My
part, I
spelling
would say,
correct?
yep. For the most part, I felt I did pretty good because they didn't have too many things to correct. But yeah, so I feel like it's easy to just have to also get more people employed that are like native speakers of these other languages. They might not be super good in English, but if they're good in their native language, and I can help get them like a quick job here or there, like hey, why not? Like,
Right. And that's for passion for education, just like the ability to like not, that actually gives a lot more people more jobs. Like let's say like your English, like someone has their second language is English, but they're much more fluent in like, let's say Korean, and they're trying to find a job and they're trying to do things maybe for right now, like, and you offer them like, hey, you can teach, you think you could teach your native tongue to someone? They're like, oh, sure.
mhm.
And now all of a sudden they have a job that they otherwise wouldn't have in that
Yeah.
market.
So I actually part of the hiring process of when I hire somebody, I want to make sure they have like teaching skills.
Right.
So they go through like a language teaching course. They get certified in teaching, like for a language specifically. Um, Once they're hired on. So also like if you're gonna work for a company for just a little bit, I want to make sure they at least get like some certification out of it so they can go out and get other jobs.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Right.
it's accredited and everything, and so we can.
Got it. So you're
Yeah,
basically you're helping people get into a job market that they might otherwise have been looking into, but they couldn't find any avenues. And now all of a sudden, you know, horizons broadened. Now you can go here.
exactly.
Now you might end up at this event. Maybe this isn't exactly the job you want, but maybe somewhere along the line you get to network with someone where you can get that job you want.
Yeah,
And because
exactly.
of course, that's actually really good effort on
Yeah.
you guys over at Passion Fruit. And yeah, I mean, I can see you guys are well, for lack of a better term, passionate about what you guys do. And
Oh, I did that on purpose.
oh,
Oh
I-
yeah, every time. Like
right.
even like as I say, passion bears progress. Our mascot is a tree, a passion fruit tree,
Right.
with a bear grabbing up like for a piece of passion fruit. So it's all on purpose. I love puns, and it's 100% part of my company
I
is
can
word.
100% guarantee that one of the games you'll make in the future will definitely be pun based.
Oh yes, oh
Uh,
yes. It's
my
working.
favorite type of puns are like in like because for English puns, everyone gets like you can kind of figure it out. But like I know languages like Japanese, they're the with the kanji, like the puns are like really subtle. Like it's two kanjis that are written completely differently but sound
Yeah,
the same. It's like
yeah,
I think that's what a lot of people like. I know I've watched like anime where like they're doing wordplay, and I don't understand it but until someone like I know points out like, hey, they said like two words that sound the exact same, but it was just like
yeah.
that's why they're laughing in the scene, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So I mean, like
So, yeah,
puns are everywhere. Everyone loves
yeah.
a good pun.
So one of is on anime. One of my favorite top animes that I like is called Bako Monogatari.
Oh yes, I know
It's
this.
a
And
story.
I haven't watched it
Yeah,
complete. I've only watched an episode or two, but I know exactly what it has. A real the author likes a lot of wordplay, right?
yeah, it's all throughout it, and like sometimes in the screen, like if you read the light novel, it's easier to catch because you're just reading. But like sometimes it'll flash on the screen something, and like you're like, what was that?
It's a
But
very artistic show for a very artistic novel, right?
yeah.
But yeah, so for Word Chef, we should expect that within the next few months. I'll link it
Ooh,
down below
yeah.
once it does release. So whoever, if you guys are watching in the future, the game will be available for you to purchase. Is it going to be available on the Passion Fruit Education website or?
It's going to be available on the Passion Fruit Education website. It's passionfruiteducation.com is my website. Right now, I don't have a graphic designer that's working solely on the website. So I actually had a website up earlier, but I switched hosts because the last host server was like terrible, and my like they, they just messed up my website so much that I had to like just scratch everything and
Right.
start from scratch. But I'm gonna be working on that in the next couple months.
Right.
Because like I have free time, I'm not in school. I'm just like I work at a school, but on my downtime when I'm not playing video games, I'm just gonna be working on my website. What I can do anyway.
Right.
So
So yeah. So that's cool. So everything will be obviously down below. The take to
down there.
passionfruiteducation.com, the word chef, everything will be linked down below. But let's change topics. Like
Mhm.
let's see, what should we talk about? Let's talk about yourself. Like you just tell we've talked so much about your company, but we haven't talked about you, Gabe, yourself.
Yeah.
Like can you just tell like audience like some of your hobbies, some of your interests, what you do? Just like
Uh,
you tell us yourself. Like
okay. Yeah.
just be you.
I mean, honestly, two of them that like you could tell I love board games and I love um I love languages. I love learning languages. Right now, I am trying to learn Arabic and also Norwegian are a
Ooh.
couple two on my list this year.
Where did that love
But
of languages like start up from? Like,
where to
because like I
start?
know some people are like, I want to learn one language or another language, or you took a language in school. Like, 10 languages. That like
It,
for someone,
yeah,
especially at your age, that is not the common thing to get. Like some people, like I've known people who get to like three or four languages at most. Never heard someone who has like a knowledge of 10
yeah.
languages.
So it's actually a funny story. Like way back in middle school, when I was learning Spanish,
Good old
it felt
Spanish.
like basically we were learning the same Spanish every year for like 2 3 years in a row, and I was like, enough of this. When I get to like high school, I'm gonna pick a different language. Like, because I thought it was a problem with the language, not just because it was. I didn't realize that I was already kind of like I was learning maybe at a faster rate, but that's a side topic. But um, I was like, enough of this. I'm going to choose a different language when I get into high school, and I was back then. I got my love for Japanese from I used to hear stories, not actually anime, um, like myths of like different folklore, like
Okay.
the kitsune, which is the fox folk, like kappa, which is like the turtle, like ghost stories, things like that. I used to like read small stories about that, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. I want to go to Japan and learn about this stuff. And so I was like, in high school, I'm going to learn Japanese. That's what I'm going to do. And the high school I went to didn't have Japanese,
Oof.
and I wasn't going to go back to, they had French, Spanish, and German. I was like, I'm not going back to Spanish. French has too many like vowels. Like I tried that. I was like, no, this is not working for me. German sounds a little like English. I'm going to try that.
Because
And
I mean, English is a Germanic language, so that makes sense.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I stuck with German for like 3 years. And while in high school, I kind of, I dated a girl that was Polish, and I really wanted to like impress her and stuff like that. So I started learning her
Of
language,
course, as people do.
uh, and I also learned Italian because we had Italian exchange students. I was like, oh, you guys are cool, and I like want to learn your words. I also went there for a summer, and like we also had a few classes there, and I just did self study on my own. Um, I tried to do Japanese in high school my senior year, like on my own, and I failed. Like I was just trying to like write the kanji, which is like the type of words, but I was like, I'm just drawing pictures. I don't understand this actually.
Right.
I took Japanese in college. At the same time, I took German because I actually needed units. I wasn't even doing it because I wanted to study more German. I was like, man, like the classes I needed are like my school is impacted. I need like some extra units. So I started taking like language courses to like supplement. Like, okay, let me still get my like my FAFSA. Like I'm a full time
Right.
student. Trust me.
Right. Right.
So I did that with like a lot of languages. Um, I did that with Portuguese. I did that with French. And then there were like other languages that like I learned a little bit of Hebrew. I still like my Hebrew is very very basic, but I was interning at it's called a Hillel, which is like basically like a Jewish Israeli community center. Is the best way I can
Right. Okay.
um, say it is, and like they help like if you ever want to learn more about like Jewish people or Israeli people, you can go to it Hillel and they'll always welcome you and you can like learn stuff. It's pretty cool. So there they had like free like Rosetta Stone and
The infamous
there,
Rosetta Stone all over
yeah,
I remember watching PBS Kids so many times back in the day, and it's just like Rosetta Stone, and me like I can't afford that at like 8 years old.
yeah, and like it was free, so I'm like, heck yeah. So I mean, yeah, so I just started learning languages more as it was like to deal with our education system is kind of messed up
And we can
at
talk
this
about
point.
that next, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get to that next. But I found out like, hey, I'm actually kind of good at this, and then like I used to like not want to be like teach English as a second language. I was like, oh man, no, that's just for people who just want like some money while they're out of college. But I actually found some fun in teaching people English. I also found fun in like teaching other languages too. So I mean, I think it's yeah, that's my language journey. Is just learning as a means of survival for college, I guess. And then it just expanded into like, oh, I all of a sudden have like 10 languages under my belt.
Right, right. And I would love to like even like learn. I did Spanish in high school. I did. They had the first at San Jose State. They finally like a
Go
few
Spartans.
Go Spartans. Finally, of like I think last year, a year and a half ago, finally added Tagalog as a class. So I as my parents' native language, it was like interesting to finally learn stuff. I'm actually now when I'm at home when they're talking or they're talking to friends or family, I'm like I can actually understand way more, even if it's at a basic knowledge. I can understand way more what's being said, and it's like it's the
Let's
fact
talk
that
about me, Hook.
you're talking about me. I can like to be fair, you just need to hear your name like they're talking about me.
Yeah,
You don't, no matter
yeah,
what language you can when gossip is gossip, and and if you
yeah,
know anything about yourself, and if you hear your name, okay, you know exactly what they're talking about, even if you have no
yeah,
context outside of
yeah,
that. But
yeah.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah. And I did learn a little bit of Tagalog from like a friend
right.
overseas. Like
Okay.
little stuff.
But
Kumusta ka na?
mabuti naman. Yeah, so that's yeah, and I explained that Tagalog class experience in the previous episode with my friend Jen. That's you can check on the channel or the
Ooh,
feed
I
if you go
missed that
back.
one.
That's
Go back.
that's on YouTube, that's on Spotify, on Anchor, on Apple Podcasts, all that jazz. You know, the stuff that's just in the
Yeah.
description
Wherever
and
you get your podcasts from.
wherever you get your podcast from. But yeah, that we talk about that. And yeah, I think learning languages, I think because obviously now in the modern global age of information with the internet, well, everything is now like connected, right? It's like we're no longer, as much as the world is a bunch of separate nations, we're way closer right now than we've probably ever been in the history of mankind since probably like the beginning when everyone was just together just because everyone hadn't like expanded across the world. It's
Right.
probably the
Yeah.
most connected humanity's been since we don't even have any like information of
Seriously.
that age. We're like there's bones here. That's as much information. There's bones and they have
Right.
like stone knives. We got it.
Yeah.
That's all we got.
Yeah.
And now we're more connected than ever. And for better or worse, I think it's I mean, some people are like, there obviously things are like maybe some cultural stuff is starting to be lost, or maybe through generations, or maybe some like it's people are more like trying to get more progressive with times and everything, and that's fine. But at the same time, it gives you the opportunity to like learn these cultural differences that we have, learn about why this is that, what like that, like
Right.
learning itself is easier than ever if you go look for it, which brings us
Yeah.
to how well, now we have a new administration, but especially with the previous in America for a presidency, I'm not gonna put names just because I don't know how that works, how that monetization works. If I just say a name of like, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be a political
But
channel or anything, but like
yeah.
especially with the previous administration with their Secretary of Education being, let's say, not the most qualified for that position. There's someone else could have definitely been picked, but even before then, I feel like education in America definitely hasn't. It's not that it's bad. Like no, we can't. We're not going to say, oh, it's like the worst education. It's not bad. It's that there's so much room for improvement
Yeah.
that I feel like you definitely can relate to, especially since you come from that field. You're coming from
Mhm.
teaching people that it's like it's not that it's bad, it's just that there's so much more better ways that we know how to teach now, but with how education, whether it's due to underfunding or lack of passion or to money, whatever it
Right.
could be, like
Yeah.
there's like something we, especially here in America or maybe even worldwide, we can say to an extent is like we haven't, as much as we're learning, there's so much. I think that's just humanity is like we're, humans, we're afraid of the unknown, afraid of change. We like being here, which is
Right.
why we're
Yeah.
like, that's why in some cases that's good. In other cases, like racism, that might not be the best thing to stay in
Some
those
things do need
ways.
to change.
But in this
Dep-
age of information, there's always like stuff like racism. What's the base of racism besides hate? Ignorance. You don't know.
yeah.
You've never met other people outside of your people you hear. It's not, in some cases, not even that you, like, I can tell from a person
Yeah.
from like a Asian background, and I know a lot of people who are like, it's not that Asians don't, especially for immigrants here, it's not that they don't like other races or something like that. It's more like literally all they know is from Hollywood and from media, and that's it. They've rarely talked outside of their thing. And in this, but now in this age of information, everyone has access to everything. We get to learn this, learn that, know about this, we know about news in this country, we know about how our
and,
education system is flawed. And
and
maybe
I
I'll let
think
you speak more on that now.
yeah, no. I think I think you brought up a third factor in it, and that's like, um, well, third and fourth is mis and disinformation. Like people
Fake
spread things
news.
that are
Yeah.
fake. Yeah. Things like that. It clogs up all of the information where you get the actual facts from. Then you just don't
Yeah, and
know.
in this age of
And
information,
yeah,
maybe now there's too much information instead of too
exactly.
little.
Yeah. So and I think in that regard, like, and I'm probably going to get hate for this, but I think in that regard, like, censorship is kind of a good thing. Not that you should take away people's freedom to say stuff, but like, it take away things that
Purposely
are like,
spreading disinformation,
yeah,
misinformation.
if you see something that is wrong, like, I don't mind if someone corrects me. I have been one to like repost something that I was like, oh, look at this is terrible, and then I like get fact checked and like I see the facts. I'm like, oh, you know what? I look more into it myself. That's right. I like, it's easy enough to delete the post, but we're kind of
Yeah, then we
uh
could get into a whole nother thing about news and
yeah,
how the news purposely doing more clickbait
yeah,
than actually getting
but
information. But that's
yeah, but
that's
we're
a
on
whole
education,
nother,
right?
right. We're talking about education. So,
Yeah.
for you as a person who's been in the education field, where you're teaching people English, working at a school, your whole company's based on teaching. Where do you see, at least let's put this specifically, put America. We could go
Mhm.
into, we
All
don't,
right.
because I think that's probably our best bet. We can't say anything about the Canadian or the European education system, how they're good, how they're bad. Let's focus
Yeah.
specifically here in the gold US of
Go
America,
backyard
right?
first. Yeah.
Our backyard. Like, what do you see can be the flaws or improvements in our system in education just right now? Like things that maybe easily changed, or maybe stuff that needs to be like changed over the next decade or two. Like, what do you think? Like, what do you see?
So I think this is something we've been fighting with for over like, yeah, the last like 20, 30 years. Like, is multilingualism in schools, like teaching dual immersion. Like, for the school that I work at, they teach both in English and Spanish, and you get like these 7 year olds that can like that know more like English and or not more English, but more Spanish than me. Sometimes like they're like, actually, the synonym for this is that. And I'm like, oh dang kid, like correcting me. Like, I think that there is a big myth that unfortunately there it through a lot of like parents like that spread that they're just afraid for their kids' education is they think that if by adding another language it will confuse the kid and they will do worse in their English or their other skills because they're learning in two languages. For kids, there's actually there isn't any information or studies that um,
Prove that,
highlight
or
like back that myth that it's going to interfere. In actuality, kids kids are sponges. They'll
Yeah, I was
soak
about to like say like kids are like they retain everything. They'll for better or worse they'll remember everything.
critical period. Like it's this is that's the time where they soak up so much more information, and if you instill that like culture in them young, they're they're not going to judge other cultures as quickly. You know, they might still do it here and there, but
Having that
once
open mind of like, okay, am I
yeah,
missing something here, or is this really how it is? And then obviously that produces more wanting to knowledge, wanting to
exactly,
learn, right?
exactly.
Isn't
That's
that
like
what our schools are supposed to be
mhm.
teaching us?
Right. Yes, exactly. Because for me, for when I learned other languages, like you hear something in English, you're like, okay, this is how structure goes. You know, blah blah blah. The cat walked over the house. I don't know, weird sentence, but whatever.
Right,
The cat
right.
walked over the house.
Grammatically
Right.
correct.
In
Yes,
English,
yes.
that is how sentences work. That's how sentences work. But then you get like something in like Japanese, and like it's like the cat, um, and then the house or overwalked or whatever, like you know, it
The
switches up where
grammatical
the
structure is
like, oh
different for
wait,
every language.
yeah. So you're like, wait, oh, it can work another way. So then your mind opens up that wait, the world is not just one way. It can be multiple ways, and like that can bleed into other things. Like you know, people are different, and like there's not one right way to be a person. You know, like
Right.
I I think that's in the basis of learning other cultures, and to start that with is like multilingualism. That's like one factor. The other factor that I think is really big is that we need to stop focusing so much on like if my kid doesn't get 100% in this class, he can't be successful, and that or that they don't get 100% in this class, it means they're dumb. It's there are so many other factors for school, especially nowadays, so many
Right.
outside
Like
factors that
they could be dealing with stress, they could be dealing with something else. Maybe they
yes,
have a undiagnosed learning disability
yeah,
or something. Like there's always
exactly.
something that there's like you can't just be like, oh, they didn't get 100, so they must not know 100% of the things. Like no, I mean
Exactly. Well, that's not exactly it. Yeah, exactly.
they maybe didn't get enough sleep, something. So you don't ever know what's going on. So it's like
Yeah,
these kids are people, they're individuals, they have
yeah,
their own lives.
yeah. And I think the pandemic actually really highlighted this because you know, like you know, people having to learn from like home, and they're like having to like you know like kids that were sitting in McDonald's parking lot just to get Wi-Fi access, and like also there's stuff that there's so much other distraction, and like we're there a lot of like schools like were more lenient on grades. I know, like especially for college, I know
Yeah.
some schools were like, okay, like if you were repeating a class, like that sounds the same anyway, if you're repeating a class this semester and you didn't do so well, it doesn't count towards your like
Right,
yeah,
that's what they've been doing, at least this I
yeah,
understand, maybe CSU system,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And before
'Cause
you had to like fill out, if you didn't do well, you had to
fill
fill
out a
out like
form, get
whole
a grade part
form,
in. Sometimes it replaces
get
your
like
grade
two
entirely. Sometimes it's an
signatures.
average. It's like
Yeah,
there's too
exactly.
many things. I don't even know what's going on at this point.
I got robbed,
It's
so
like
like
you need a C, but you need an average, which means now instead of failing it, you
yeah,
need to ace. It's
exactly.
like what? Like
Yeah,
there's so many, but now it's like I mean, obviously they still want you to pass, and obviously the
yeah,
concept of passing in classes means that you retained enough information to know. But I just feel like maybe the standard is not that it's too high, but just
yeah.
we're focusing so like colleges are look the first thing colleges jobs look at is a grade. What
I
was your grade? It's like you don't like and especially now, especially in colleges where like so many people are like especially with like STEM majors are like, we just got C's. We can't even put our GPA on
I
our
can
resume. Just
I can sum it up
and
in
it's
two words.
like we can if we don't
Lighten
get a
up.
three like people say if you don't get a 3.0, don't put on your GPA. Well, the majority of resumes are not going to put have it because they don't have that GPA of
Yeah,
like.
exactly.
So now everyone knows you didn't, and then they depending on what company they might judge you. And instead of like having your skills, let's say like
Yeah.
I'm a major in computer engineering. Let's say for me, I've had all these projects, right? I've made this
Mhm.
robot that can do this. I've made my own like app that's on the app store. Like you
Yeah.
keep going on, but literally the first thing you see is education. It says GPA. Let's say I put it, but it was like 2.4. It's passing, but now that's like, especially with these
Yeah.
automated engines now, if you're not networking directly with people, your resume
Yeah.
may never be looked at by the
Yep.
major companies. You're gonna have to
Exactly.
work twice or three times, four times as harder. So like before, like at that point where like you're like 10, 20 years in, like I don't need my GPA. I'm ready. I'm like, I didn't graduate, no one cares anymore. But it's like that's those things like grades aren't
Yeah.
everything. Like it doesn't grades can give like a picture of like how for in the most ideal situation, how much a person is retaining, how much they're trying in a class.
It's
But
a
it's not the
snap.
be all end all. It's not like
It's a
it's not the
snapshot. You can't
right,
see everything,
right.
and
You
I
can't
think
see
that.
like
Mhm.
right,
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that bleeds into the next thing is that we need like to redefine how we're like one measuring like smart like how smart someone is and also how we teach things. Like I think the way we teach math these days is way outdated. I'm not very good at math. Maybe I am good at math, but just not in the way that
maybe like you're
it's
more
being
like
taught.
practical sensing. Like you're not I can't
That
like I can't write it down. I can't write down the Pythagorean. Okay, but that's a
yeah,
maybe
I
that
can, but
I
yeah,
can't remember every integral and stuff from calculus, but like
yeah.
I can I know how much like one half base times side is to create this structure I need. Like to
Right? I think I saw in a TED talk about education where they talked about like we need to stop trying to measure how many paper clips are in front of you, and more focus on how many ways can you use this paper clip. Like that,
right.
it's a shift in thinking of what are you trying to get as an end goal? Are you trying to get someone who can memorize information, or are you trying to get someone who can build off information? Like
Right. Because
yes.
I think that's especially in like let's say that I'll say this as someone in tech world. There's so much, especially if you ever heard about coding interviews. It's like there's so much emphasis on like you got to remember these 200 algorithms to solve these type of codes, and can you use that in this type of problem? And then when you're finally and then you're doing all this and you barely pass, you get to Google, and what do? You see one glitch every month, and then you just kind of sit there like, what was all that process? You're not even like applying like these. I think just like and especially in America, we're so much into testing your knowledge than in terms of like you're doing multiple choice A, B, C. Like,
Yeah.
do you retain? Do you like memorize? It's not even retain it. It's, can you memorize it for this test rather than can you retain this information? Use it practically in somewhere else. Like that's
Yeah.
why there's so many times where people say, "When am I going to need a new algebra or calculus?" And without their knowledge, they're using it every day. Without like using like they're not writing
Yeah.
it down. They're not doing. But like, let's say, what's the fastest way to get here? That's math, but you're not like thinking about like going and
Yeah.
like, okay, if I just cut across the grass, that'll be the fastest way instead of going on
Yeah.
the sidewalk. That's literally you just did the Pythagorean theorem and you're without actually having the numbers. Straightest
Exactly.
path is just straight.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like
You
a lot
hit
of
it.
people like who may have the aptitude for that type of thinking are punished for not memorizing stuff like the specific theorems, these specific proofs, these specific dates for history. Is
Right.
like
Yes.
I think that brings up the point. I think there's not enough practical knowledge taught, especially maybe early on, like learning history and learning math. You need to get the fundamentals, and you know how to add. You need
Right.
to do this. You need to be able to form sentences, whether
Of
through writing or
course.
reading. You need some basic level of public speaking. But I think like
Yeah.
once you get to like, especially near like maybe halfway through high school, I feel like not everyone need like as much as I just made a whole rant of you're doing stuff like algebra and calculus in your mind every day or doing something with English every day. Not
Mhm.
everyone in their field is going to need to know calculus or even know more than basic algebra or need to know more than basic language structure or like even though you're talking about learning languages, not everyone, as much as it's great to have an open mind about learning about, oh, I need to learn Spanish and Japanese, not everyone's. I'll tell you this, I barely remember any of the Spanish I did in high school. I have not needed to use it at
Yeah.
all so far in my life, and maybe I will, and maybe that'll be a bad on me or the system for not having me retain it. But not everyone's. I feel like there's not enough emphasis on like say like financial. I don't know how to do my taxes. I am about to graduate college. I have no idea how to build up credit. I'm
So
just now learning about stocks because I decided I need to learn about stocks. I need to learn about
yeah,
ETFs. I
I,
need to do that. I need
yeah,
to invest in that because I want to make as much as like we like you could make fun.
and
Oh, it's a capitalistic society. Like I want as much as like
but still, until it
capitalistic.
changes, I still need
You need
my
goods. You need
taxes.
services. You need money. You like is like until like you can. There's pros and cons of both capitalism and communism. Until we find the third best amazing way of economy, those are our two systems. And in the system we're in, you need money. Like you don't need maybe you don't need to be like rich. You don't need to be Elon Musk, and you don't need
Yeah,
to be like eat. We have to eat the rich. Like you just need enough to like, especially if you're fueling your passions. You just need enough to fuel that passion to do all these things to build yourself up to like, because like yeah, but like no one knows how to do taxes. No one knows that you can write off a lot of stuff on taxes for your job. Let's say all these, like you're on YouTube,
oh yeah,
like let's say you bought a whole new microphone. I know because I've seen it on other podcast YouTube channels. There's a I bought a $2,000 microphone. I wrote it off my tax. I now have
yeah.
$2,000 I write back from the government because it's
I
for my job. Not everyone knows that you can write stuff
yeah.
like that off. Like
I'm about to get a magnetic, or not magnetic. It's a basically like to advertise my company, Passionfruit Education. I'm about to put that on my car, and
right.
like that's that my car is now being is like advertisement for like my company.
Right.
I can write off my gas mileage and stuff like that.
Right. That's exactly stuff like that. But people don't
Yeah.
know that. I mean, as
No,
much as not everyone be like, I'm not good at cooking. Well, one quarter trimester semester of home economics isn't going to improve your cooking. Like just because oh, I know how to bake a cookie.
yeah,
Okay. But
but I think
there's no sense of learning practical skills, like at least not anymore. Like unless you go to like trade school or you go learn stuff on the internet, you're not like or even like the fact that people like are dissuaded from doing stuff like trade school when that a lot of those jobs are high paying and you
in
can learn
yeah, I think
passions
that's
in
the
those. Like
problem. I don't think it's the problem of are actually learning it. Like again, I didn't get like I didn't learn how to like bake cooking in school or anything like that. I didn't get baking, I didn't get wood shop, I didn't get any of those. I think that our emphasis on what will make you money or what is important takes away from people like paying attention or doing better in those classes because like well this is counts for now but once I get into like college or I'm trying to get into
right,
college like they're not going to look at my like my baking skills and stuff like
right.
that so like, I think we
But there's
don't
like
pay as
if
much
you have an
attention.
aptitude for cooking, you can go culinary school. But for some people, they're dissuaded from even attempting
Yeah,
that when they could maybe they are the next big chef or cook in the world, but
i
now they're not even going to be have that chance now because
I
they're
took
dissuaded from that.
yeah I took beginning band my senior year of high school not because I'm lazy because I wanted to learn an instrument. I learned the flute. I actually really liked the flute. When I got to college, I didn't want to necessarily major in music, but when I tried to, I was like, oh, can I take a class on like, like woodwinds or whatever? And they're like, oh, are you a music major? And I was like, no. I was like, oh, well, you have to be a music major and you have to audition. I was like, what the heck? Like, I just want to like,
Right, you just
I,
want to learn.
I just want to improve. And maybe I could have been like this awesome, like, Greg Patil, if like he
Right.
famous flute player that does beatboxing
Okay.
flute.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I've seen a
Yeah,
few stuff
yeah.
like that.
I could have been him, like the next him, but like I didn't. I was
Not
cut
saying that
off.
you have the talent for, it, but like you don't know if you have the
Yeah,
talent for it.
yeah. I don't know. Like because like they're like, oh, you no. This is only for like serious people. Like I
And I
guess.
think that's also feeling of like the biggest. I think we have the pandemic, but for what other people are saying is like the next big economic thing, if we aren't to solve it soon, and whether or not that's like pardoning it or telling people we don't have to pay it off anymore, that's a whole
Mm-hmm.
different conversation. It's student debt. I'm not. Let's not dance around it. Like student debt.
Yeah,
Like some people, it's a little problem. Some
I
people,
got
it's a
it.
big problem. But like for a lot of people, it's because they went to college because they were told go to college, go to university, don't do community college, don't even go community college, go straight to university, get these scholarships, do this, and then whether or not it's because they dropped out or because they didn't or they changed majors to something that they didn't like because they weren't good
Yeah,
at the thing that they were pushed to. But now I'm not going to say you shouldn't pursue your passion, but there's so many majors now in college that have very small job fields, and the job fields that they have are very low paying. And now these student debts are racked up for 40.
Yeah.
When you have Hollywood actors who are, I mean, just breaking in, not like they're 10 years in, but like just breaking in, and they're still paying off their student debt, and they were just in a multi-billion-dollar movie and they're paying off student debt still. We have a problem here. I think
Yeah.
we're emphasizing going, I mean, for obvious reasons back in, I think because university college back in the day, but for as bad as it sounds, were for the elite, for the people who could afford
Yeah.
it. You can go here. And then obviously you'd want to include more people. So you, for a good reason, if you, education is key for a lot of people, you start including more people. But now I think it's to the point where we've
Yeah.
emphasized it that everyone, you either go to college or you're poor. Like
Yeah.
when
Or
that's
like,
not
you know,
the, that's we don't emphasize entrepreneurship as much. We don't emphasize trade school. We don't emphasize going to finance without just learning stocks on your own, like having
mhm.
passive income, having like just don't, instead of just having savings or just like, or learning home skills like cooking and stuff. Like maybe you can't learn that at home. It's like there's so many things that we emphasize as not being valuable when they are they actually are valuable. Like in the loss, like there are jobs out there for like almost anything. As much as I just said for the there's low paying jobs, like there especially in this day and age, there's jobs for everything. But because we're
Yeah.
focused, like you have to be a STEM major, you have to do this, you have to,
Right.
even if you're not a STEM major, like you have to be, you want to do anything about being an author, you have to go be an English major.
Yeah.
You have to do history, like especially for a lot of these things where you don't see the results of these educations until like, let's say psychology. A lot of people take psychology, right? For it's an
Yeah.
easy major. Well, that's because unless you go into your master's and doctorate, that major really doesn't do a lot for a lot of people. It's easy, but there's not really a big market for bachelor
Even
psychology people. And it's like,
even still, those people that have them, they're still in like major debt, and like that, like
and we go to college, and there's a statistic out there: 70% of people go into a job field that doesn't even relate to their major.
yeah.
And we have this whole problem with student debt when 70% of people who have that student debt don't even use the thing they're in debt in to be in
Yeah.
their job.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, and I
Problem.
think that's just the whole that's something that obviously is not, that's not a quick fix. We can't be like, oh, put 30% more of the US budget in education. It's not going to solve anything. We got
Yeah.
we have reform. We got, and right
Yeah.
now there's a lot of people having hope for first time in America, or not hope, depending on who you are, I guess. But like it's like this time of change where we're like, I think we're at a crossroads right now where
Yeah.
we're either going to finally break through and start improving, even if it's slowly, or we're going to be where we are right now, or maybe even regress and just fall behind. And it's like, yeah. What are your thoughts on all that? I know I went like a little mini rant there.
No. Man, I'm like 100% with you. Like right there. Like it seems like we had the choice of like, hey, let's like we can rebuild. We can take out little pieces and small pieces like a jigsaw and like exchange them for other pieces. Like before, this is maybe like 10, 20 years ago, we could have done this. But now we're at the point like, no, you can't just take out one piece. Now you gotta like, if we don't like take the whole thing out and then replace it with something new, we're in trouble. Or hey, let's like give relief to those that are still stuck by the system now and then keep replacing. And then I think that's like a better way to do it, is one things I'm for canceling student debt. And I know I myself don't have a lot of student debt.
No,
Like I
I
do
don't have, at this point when I graduate, I won't have much either, but I know a lot of people who do.
Still, I know people, yeah, it's not about me. It's like it's about like, hey, let's take that away. Like let's get rid of these like student debt and let's like rebuild from there, and other small things of the system we can like start exchanging out. Like we can like start putting more emphasis on like not just STEM but like on the arts, and like we can start bringing in more schools with like, and this is like more middle school, like K through 12, but dual immersion schools, like to help kind of I don't know the correct word, but like give us more culture, like
pay teachers a living wage that they can actually reimburse
like,
them for what they have to provide for their students. Like just like basic.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's like people are like, oh, my teacher doesn't care. There are a lot of teachers who, when they first come in, even even when they're retiring, they cared the whole time. But because they're not getting paid too much, I mean, like, how many teachers that we've heard of have a second summer job? We're like, oh, they have this whole summer off. When in reality, they're
teaching, but
working
also
another
yeah,
job the whole summer. They didn't
11, like kind of
stop.
like you just come on, like
Yeah.
they
Like, it's just like
like
a little bit more. It's like, and that's a
working.
whole other political
Yeah,
debate. But it's like, we do not pay. People are saying like, "Oh, do you really, really want $15 per hour?" That's almost the same as teachers. First of all, that should not be the case. Whether or not you believe in the minimum wage or not, we should not be pushing the minimum
yeah,
wage to the point where you're almost being paid for the people who are teaching the future generations of this world. Like,
yeah,
these teachers have it rough. Like, these, like,
yeah.
they're working 75% of the year with money that doesn't even last
Or,
through that
or
year, and then they're off the summer. But in reality, they're most likely working a second or third job maybe that summer, just so they have income that they might need to spend on their students. They're not even spending on themselves, they
yeah,
spend on their
that's
students.
something. Or at least let's like yeah, let's like not let's have teachers not paying for their own supplies, guys. Like that's I think there's like some great systems out there. Like I don't know if you know Raft. Like shout out to
No.
them. They're Raft like they'll supply like teach like things for teachers like boxes or to create
Okay.
art supplies or
Right. Okay.
printers. They have 3D printers like that you
Ooh.
can use. Like they have all this type of stuff that you can use for cheap. Like if you have a membership, it's like you can buy there and like it's a wonderful place. But I think that we should kind of there shouldn't be a need for places like Raft because it's like, oh, but teachers already have like you know, an expensive, money for, and like some places do have like money set aside for like other teachers to use on teaching expenses. I know like the school I work for has something like that. But we don't really need to use it because like our school's a little bit different. It's a charter school, so it's not like a
Right.
public school, but like we shouldn't be paying the teachers so low, and also it affects them more when they have to pay for their own stuff.
Right.
Like
I know
you're
friends
not
who are
helping.
like I know, especially I'm at the age where the people in my age, people I graduated high school, college with, well, I haven't graduated college yet, but people I graduated high school
Hey,
with are now becoming the teachers of these young kids or even sometimes middle schoolers. They're just like, as much as I love it and as much as it's COVID right now, I'm scared when this whole thing's done. Maybe this year, next year, am I gonna be overwhelmed? Because right now it's like I can barely, where this is generational thing. I cannot get these kids to pay attention when I'm looking at them at a screen. I am scared of when we're finally back in person class. Is this going to be the same? Is it going to get worse? Is it going to get better? Like, they don't know. And like, especially now when they have to buy supplies now, especially now it's like in person now, I actually have to buy the art supplies for these kids. It's like, and there are all these things. That's not a bad thing, but it's like I can barely afford it right now in the time when I'm
mhm,
barely buying supplies for students. I'm scared for when I actually have to. Like, am I,
yeah,
if I don't get a raise, can I even do the things that I'm thinking of I want to do to teach
yeah,
these kids? And it's like, and I get it. Like, education reform is not like, it's not something you can just like completely change on a whim. I think that's what I like to criticize the previous administration, what they had on terms of standardizing education across everywhere. I know in my area where I come from high school and middle school, I'll just say our education standards are really high. I'm in a very highly densely Asian American population, and on top of that, the schooling system's really strong over here in terms of like education funding, maybe not for teachers, but in terms of like
yeah,
technology and whatnot. And like we a lot of people go Harvard and Stanford, but even over here, when the new, I don't remember what it's called, CASP, whatever, or I think it's for California only, but like the new, I think you're a few generations older, but you probably heard about like they changed like the STAR test is no longer, don't have the STAR test anymore, but they're trying to get more practically teaching. But I think they integrated it I think it's whole United States. They integrated too fast to the point where the teachers, as much as like, oh, practical learning, that's better. All the students who are right now have never done this, they're struggling. The teachers have never had to teach like this, they're struggling. It's like reformation is obviously easier said than done, but I think it can be. I think we still have more to do. And I think even though like it looks bad now, like in 20 years when the students who learn the system that they're teaching now more practically, not saying practical like taxes, but like practically learning math and English right now, when they become teachers, like I think they're coming now, it'll be easier for them to teach this generation. But I feel like people were like, especially around here, were like, "Oh, look at this! We can't. They're not getting A's and B's anymore. They're getting C's. Some are failing when they were getting A's before."
Yeah.
It's like too much panic. Like it's
And
like
yeah.
like calm down. This is step one of like 2,000 more steps. We're not even close to where we should be. There are people who are graduating right now who are like not even going to college. They don't know how to do taxes. They don't know how to do this. Like they can't afford college. Like they're not, it's
Yeah.
not even that they didn't want to go college. They can't afford it. Or maybe
Yeah.
they're like, maybe their family's like, oh, you don't have to go to college. You can do whatever. Still don't know how to do taxes. Like you're
Yeah.
18, you don't know how to. I don't know how to do taxes. Like when I graduate, I'm gonna freak out once like I move out of my house. I do not know. And
And
my girlfriend actually
you
knows a little bit more about that. Even her, it's not much. Like there's so much practical information. Like or learning
and
about like we brush up on so many things about like oh America did this, moving on, or oh this country did this, moving on. Like do people know in America that like let's say Japan, right?
Mhm.
People know that it's not called Japan in Japan. Japan isn't Japan. It's Nippon. It's not
Yeah.
Germany. It's Deutschland. I
Yeah.
don't even. You don't even know this thing. No, it's like it's probably like one
Yeah.
definition from a sixth grade textbook, and you'll never remember it.
A lot of that
Like you,
stuff. Like well, like even Japanese, how you say Germany in Japan is Deutschugo or
right? Because
Japanese
they have to
language.
like they,
But yeah, because
they have,
it's Deutschland is German or Germany, and that's where they get it from. They don't get it from us. We call it
right.
German. Like like I don't know.
I think especially now with like at least maybe I don't want you can't maybe it's harder to do well maybe it's even easier to do in elementary school doing all that maybe not taxes but like stuff like more practical learning but I think especially by the time you get high school and you're about to like be in the real world I think these skills are really much needed where it's like yes I would love to know what I can and cannot write off as a tax or how to even file for my taxes where do I get my W4 W2 what is all that
Yeah,
what are my tax what tax bracket am I in or stuff like practical stuff like how can I can do more than just put water in a hot top ramen cup and just eat that like I can actually make even if it takes me a little longer I can actually make some a steak and I can
and
mashed potatoes and rice instead of
you
just like
know I can't help with that.
no you can't I know I'm just saying like in general like
I know. But I'm saying is I can't help teach because that's not my market of how I'm going to change. But I chose that I am going to change my little corner of education is language, and that's where I'm going to work. And that's
right
why for a lot of it, I want to take pressure off teachers where it's so hard to get like a student to like do homework out of class, like
no,
or
I
to
get
learn out
I'm
of
the
like
one of the ultimate procrastinator right
yeah.
now dude
It's if you get a lifelong learner, someone who's doing it more than just for the for the grade, it's very hard to do. Well, when you get it as a teacher, that's like the best feeling. And like if you saw the movie Soul,
I haven't seen it
um,
yet, but I'm okay with
okay,
minor spoilers or major spoilers.
minor
Minor
spoilers.
spoiler. Okay, I'm fine with
There,
that.
there's a kid in the like teacher's trombone
Oh,
class,
I
or
seen the trailer. I saw the trailer. Yeah, I
yeah.
know what you're talking about.
So like yeah, like she wasn't. It wasn't because she wasn't good. She just felt like school's not for me. Like like she thought it wasn't for her, but she was actually really good, and she like had stuff that she was
The
practicing
class laughed at
outside of
her or something,
class.
right? Or
Huh?
at least in the trailer, right? I think the
Yeah,
class
something like
because she
that.
like
Yeah,
she went a little bit too passionate. And I remember the teacher was
yeah.
like,
Like,
"No, that's
oh, look,
good. That's
you're
good.
passionate. Yeah.
That's good. Like it's good to
Um,
right."
and yeah, no, exactly. Like I think that for me, I wanna instill like like people to do stuff outside of class with language. Like for some of my former students, my newer students that I'm teaching haven't gotten there yet for language. This is outside of my like schoolwork,
Right.
the school I work at. What I do, and this is pre-COVID, I would send them on missions. Like I'm like, all right, like for my English language learners, I was like, all right, before our next lesson, before I see you again, why don't you go to a coffee shop and start a conversation with a random person? Like just whatever, try to conversate with the person in line. I'll give you some
Lovely
tips
weather we're
on how to
having,
learn
right?
it.
Just
Yeah, or like I like your purse, like things like that. And I was like, the next time you come back to me, tell me what happened. Like, and we'll go from there. And like, you need to, like, learning doesn't isn't always needs to happen inside the class. If it happens outside of the class, that's some pressure we can take off the system of having, like, get, focusing so hard on, like, language, or like, hey, um, ask your parents. I know it's like an embarrassing question, like, but like, hey, I want you to go home and ask your parents what tax bracket you guys are in. Just like,
right.
you don't have to relate to the class and tell me, and then we can have a conversation, and like I can tell you why that is and what that means. Like, if we can bring learning home, or bring learning outside of the classroom, I think it'll take off so much more pressure, that we can add in other stuff while, like, we can focus on other stuff while inside the classroom. It's like, okay, go like learn a bit of history about your own culture that you haven't learned before, and then we'll discuss it. And like, that could be the curriculum. It's like, if you have like, like
Right.
12 students every, like, for 24 weeks, each week, they have to deliver two different stories, that of like things they want to learn about, and then you just add into the curriculum or something like that. Like,
Right.
it's I think it's that, again, like, it's just, you need to take pressure off the system of our teachers, because our teachers are like drowning in like trying to teach
Right.
everything at once, and still not enough.
Yeah, I feel like the last point I think before we get out of here, I think it's like what
Mhm.
you're saying is true. I think let's go really back to the education system. I think there's so much emphasis on testing and grades, like especially testing, like
Mhm.
midterms and finals and benchmarks and quizzes. There's so much, and yes, and to a certain extent, those do at some points teach you, or are able to show how much you remember from the class. But at the same time, it's like that's just memorizing. It was
Yeah.
like 67% of what you learned last year you forget over 3 months. In 3 months you forget all that stuff, and that's why literally every year for middle school, elementary school, high school, the first month is literally just review. And like that, for some people that's exactly how they learn, but for a lot of people that's why their experience at school is so bad. I don't like tests, I don't like stuff like, but I feel like doing what you said, having them do more practice, like just projects, like let's say
Yeah.
let's go over Spanish. I remember vividly stressing out for like Spanish
Mhm.
tests, but I had the funnest time when we had to do a Spanish project, like a
Kids
video
are
or
like
teaching from the
the
class
video.
or making a
Oh my
game
gosh,
or
those
like
are
all
fun.
those stuff is like that stuff is like you, especially because you are now actively attempting like you this whole like this 20-minute video has to be entirely in Spanish, and you have to whether, and some people obviously are gonna be everyone's gonna be like, oh, I'm Google translated, it's obvious, it sucks, but like for some people
Yeah.
like now it's like actively I have to talk instead of just like, oh, this is exactly how you conjugate this verb in Spanish. It's now like I have to actively know what it is, say it grammatically correct to
Yeah.
someone, whether it's a camera or in
Yeah.
person. And that, I think there's studies I know for, I don't want to get too far because I'm not that's my I don't have too
Yeah.
much knowledge, but like writing, hearing, listening, talking, all those are essential to learning. And with testing, it's really, unless you have like an audio portion, maybe of your test, it's literally I write down. That's only one
Yeah.
way of like it's from mind to
I,
hand, and that's all
yeah.
you get. Like when, especially for language talking. If you're not doing much talking in a language class, there
Except
might be
signing.
something is like something's wrong with it. Like you're not
Except
learning.
signing. Except signing.
Except
So
signing.
I
Well,
saw,
signing. That's obviously it.
but so I saw a project. I saw someone's final. They did a whole song, as their final of, I don't remember the exact name. It says, "You see me driving around town with a girl,"
Forget
or
you,
"You
right?
driving."
Forget you. Oh, I think you there, Gabe? Yeah. Ooh. Oh, you lag really badly
Yeah,
right
just
now.
a little bit. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you lagged a little bit after.
You're talking
But
about forget you, something about.
they did their entire song in sign language. Forget you.
Oh,
Like
okay.
they did the whole thing, and it was wonderful. Like that kind of stuff is like instead of it's like my name is Gabe or whatever, like spelling out your name, like
Right. Or like if you're like, let's say you're learning sign language, but like you're taking a class. Okay, what is this symbol in when you just show a hand on the thing and you write it down? Like, what is that? How is this helping me? I'm just
yeah.
memorizing stuff. I'm not using practically.
Mhm.
If you're not using, like, I think it's like if you're not using what you're learning, you're not learning. You're just
Mhm.
memorizing. I'm memorizing the quadratic formula. I'm not using it in any
Go ahead. Ask me
practical,
about
plausible.
1812. I guarantee you, I will not give you the War of 1812. I cannot give you any knowledge on it.
When
I
was the
just
siege
was
of the
war.
Bastille? Is that even? I don't even remember if that's the name of the thing. I remember the
So
Bastille.
Bastille is a French word.
It's a French word, and
Hmm.
there's something maybe French Revolution.
Sieges
Right?
are
Like I'm not
bad
like because I
yeah.
remember back in the day. I remember remembering that question and that date. I don't remember anything about that now. I don't,
Yeah.
storming the Bastille. That's all I got. Something happened. They may or may have stolen weapons. I don't remember why.
Yeah.
I don't remember why. Like I mean, I know history. A lot of history is more memorization, but like that's just an example. Like I don't remember,
Yeah.
and that's whether or not you want to say that's the education system. That's my teacher. That like
Yeah.
that's not learning. That's memorizing. And I feel like
Yeah.
there's so much emphasis nowadays in modern. That might not even just be America. That might be just
Yeah.
worldwide at this point to a certain extent. Is like memorizing stuff without learning.
And emphasis, that's not the teacher's fault.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's the teacher's fault.
Yeah, yeah,
I
no,
just said whether that was my
of
teacher. I
course,
was just
yeah,
saying
no,
that.
like we like sometimes a lot of schools have such
Strict
strict
standards. Like if you don't teach
curriculums.
this way,
It's
you're
have
not
to,
like
yeah,
this
cover
isn't the
this by
90s movie where it's like School of Rock. You can we're gonna go on a concert for this band. Like we're not doing that. You might have a marching band. That's it. I mean, not to say bad about marching band, but like, I'm saying like this isn't like there's not like a teacher who comes in and changes the system. No, if a
yeah,
teacher does that in the real world and tries to change the system, unless they get the backing of like the
yeah.
principal, they're gone. You
Side
can't be here
note,
anymore.
like props to that event coordinator that got enough people to go out. What was that, like on a Wednesday night to a concert? He put on an event in like the middle of the week and
Oh
had
yeah,
like a
yeah.
sold out show. Like props to that event coordinator because woo, I'm
No,
not
but
with
it's
that.
like stuff like that. Like those teachers who want to teach differently are told not to, or else you can't. Like we won't give
Yeah,
you a raise. We won't give you a higher
that's
position. You can't become the superintendent. You can't become the principal.
that's
Like you're not. You
no.
can't move up.
That's very true in like programs like JET, teaching English in Japan.
Right.
You don't you don't you just they want you to read from the book. Just do what don't go crazy. They just want you to do
Even though it's your
normal
language.
stuff.
Even
Yeah,
though
yeah.
it's
They want you to teach this way, and that's the only way they want you to teach it and stuff like that.
and as much as like we make fun of an animated Japanglish, I mean they're learning English, but I mean to if you've heard that we were like all those not horrible
So
but like
okay, and here's a cultural lesson.
yes,
Why,
here we
like
go.
okay, so Japan has a really, really good English learning system up till because it's all kind of like here. It's all about getting into college. So part of the college admission is like English, like having a really good score in English. After that, you don't have to worry about it. Like,
Yeah, no, don't
once you
worry
get to
about
college,
it.
so there's a lot of people who in Japan that are really good at writing. Like if you ever get stuck and you need to like get something across, if you write it, you are more likely to get like somebody. It's not an official statistic, but you're more likely to get somebody to like read what's on your phone. Like, hey, bathroom, and they'll look at it like, oh, okay, I know that English word. Then you speaking it because they don't have to use it
Right.
after
There's no
college. It's like,
we go back. There's no practice. You just learn and forget.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the whole. I think that's the most. Not obviously, there's so many other problems with not even education, just in general. But like, I feel like that's one of the biggest things we need to reform in American education is not that we don't test or we don't emphasize memorizing, because memorization and testing is a skill you need in the real world at times, but it's not. But we make it so that people think it's the only skill, and then once they get out into the quote unquote adult real world,
Yeah.
they realize that's like 10% at best of what I need to be able to do. And now the 90% practical stuff is, I don't have any skill in that. And now that's where people like don't get jobs or don't end up using their degree for the job they end up getting.
Yeah.
It's like I think that's the for me that's one of the, if there's like a top five, that's definitely the top five of things we need to be able to reform in the education system here in America. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think, well, we had a lot of ranting, a lot of good
I
stuff, but
mean, good stuff.
good stuff, good stuff. So yeah, we probably, that's probably we're going to end it. So where can they find? They can find your company passionfruiteducation.com, right?
Passionfruiteducation.com, or you can also find me at Instagram at Passionfruit Education. Also on Facebook at Passionfruit Education.
All will be linked down below.
This is yes, and this is really bad, but I want to. So Twitter messed up my handle, so I want to make sure I give you the right one. I don't lead you somewhere else. Because I'll repost this whole interview in there. Yes, actually. So at Passionfruit ED3 is my handle. ED3. Yeah.
Got it. All right, and all that will be linked down below, as well as when we'll advertise it. We'll just have it coming soon for now. But Word Chef, once that comes out, will also be linked down in the description. Word Chef, obviously the game that is being produced by Passionfruit Education and was partially designed by my amazing girlfriend. You can go over to see your sticker shop in the below. But yeah, and yeah, I think we have a lot of stuff. I think what you're doing is amazing. It's like you are. Again, pun very much intended. Very passionate about what you're doing, and and for the stuff you're doing with the board game, with teaching people languages, it's something that I feel like a lot of people can relate to. People who've been wanting to learn language, people who never got a chance. You're giving them the chance to finally live out what they've been wanting to learn for so long, and making it fun, not just giving them a chance to learn, making it fun. I think that's the biggest thing that I feel like maybe people who might be similar to you may not. I'm not saying they don't, but they may or may not be as passionate or wanting to make it as fun as you are. And I feel like having this first board game, one of hopefully many successful ones in the future, is a great way for people to learn that. And yeah, if you keep doing what you're doing to add Passion Fruit Education. Hope for more stuff in the future, and maybe if something else comes along, you'll see you again. Whether or not it's for Passion Fruit Education or for anything, we'll see you on the podcast once again, dude.
And I'm I'm a little bit backlogged on your channel. I gotta go back because I think I missed the Tagalog one.
Yeah, that's there's probably so many more. 7.
Episode 7. Okay, I'm gonna have to.
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. It's on Spotify. Which as well, if you're listening here or if you're watching here on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel right now. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please follow and rate the podcast so the algorithms and stuff can get it out to many people. Yeah, but
look, it's GoLoco podcast.
It's recommended. Ooh, what's this? What's Passion Fruit Education? No, but yeah, all that stuff, all our social media handles, all the playlists, all the stuff will be linked down in the description down below here on YouTube. And remember, you can support me at patreon.com/GoLocoPod. For as little as $1, $2, even $5 a month, you can get exclusive content like unedited stuff behind the scenes. As much I'm trying to update as much as I can, and now that finally back on, like after a 2-month hiatus for this thing, I'm hopefully, especially now that I'm graduating college soon, I feel like I want to pick up this thing more as like something I want to do more, sharing more people like you, Gabe, your company, your stuff, or just talking about friends. Like as much as a podcast is, just showing a little chunk of the world that even if it's like very small, it's a chunk that can get out to more people than just us two talking here on a computer screen. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching and listening here at the GoLoco podcast today. All Gabe's social media and company website will be linked down below. And yeah, wherever and whenever you are in the world, I hope you're having an amazing day. Peace out, y'all.
Peace.